Okay, here we are, next shift with Rick Wagan. Suzuki does not suck. The Montreal Canadiens just finished the trade deadline and they decided to go with no trades. I've been talking about that for some time now. The Montreal Canadiens are currently not in a playoff position. They are 1 point back. They are 1 game behind and they are fighting for that spot. The Canadiens decided to stick with the team that got them there. They did not decide to make any trades. The good news is players like ARMIA and SAVARD and DVORAK are still with the team. So the Montreal Canadiens are doing what they can to continue the run. The Canadiens were considered sellers probably before the Four Nations Cup, and going 5-0-1 in the 6 games prior to the deadline prevented them from making the trades that many people thought they were going to do. It was definitely a seller's market this time around. There's not a lot of teams selling, and with a lot of teams fighting for the final playoff spots, teams like the Ducks, teams like the Canadiens, many of these teams were not giving up on their young players. There's teams like Pittsburgh and Seattle and Buffalo that did. And so it was quite an interesting trade deadline. Looks like Rantanen ended up in Dallas. It looks like Marchand ended up in Florida. Cousins ended up in Ottawa. And Lawton ended up in Toronto. Toronto didn't do very much considering. It looks like the Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida put a little bit more into the trade deadline than teams like the Canadiens are, in that range. Were kind of not selling. I think if the Canadiens didn't win those games, they probably would have made some trades. Probably would have got a lot for Jake Evans this time around, or maybe even a Savard or a combination of a Armia and Evans package. I also, I looked at the trade. The only player I thought the Canadiens could consider is Cousins. I'm not a big fan of Middlestat. O'Reilly didn't go anywhere. And so, end of the day, I'm happy with the decision. I think the Canadiens will have an opportunity to fight for a playoff spot, and that's all you can ask for. They definitely didn't improve their team, but they also didn't hurt their team. When I was listening to Hughes, it was basically that. I think they were taking some shots at different players. They're looking for players that can fit the bill for years to come and not just necessarily a rental. I think the sellers market made it very high to get that player. And so all in all, it was an interesting trade deadlines. Now we're down to the last, 20 games left in the NHL season for the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens go to Calgary tomorrow night. They play Calgary at 7 p.m. Eastern time, so that should be an interesting game. And then they go to Vancouver on Tuesday and Seattle on Wednesday. So back-to-back games in Vancouver and Seattle. These 3 games are going to be really important. The Canadiens definitely need to win 2 of those 3 games. It would be good if they win 3 or win 2 and lose in overtime. If they can find a way to get out of this Western swing with a winning record, 5 points would be okay, but 6 points out of 8 would be ideal. And so we'll see how it all plays out. They can still get 7 if they win the rest of the way. So far so good. After that, they come home and they play the Florida Panthers, who definitely stocked up this trade deadline. And then they play Ottawa, who again changed their team around with Cousins joining the fray. So 2 games at home, and then they go to the Islanders, and then they're back home again against the Avalanche, who definitely did some stuff as well. So quite an interesting remaining games, we can call it. And the Canadiens are in the mix. Suzuki has 65 points after 62 games, so he's on pace for over a point a game. Caufield got his 31st goal and has 56 points overall, so that's good. Hudson got his 45th assist, so he is 1 assist behind Nick Suzuki. Quite an interesting realm from that perspective. When we started the season, I talked about the Montreal Canadiens. I talked about all their different lines. Obviously, players like Joshua Waugh didn't really get a shot. Players like Doc didn't really perform how I thought they might. Lane Hudson surprised me a little bit on the defensive side, but on the offensive side, I was one of those believers that he was going to be as good as he was. Slafkovsky, it's an interesting dynamic. It's 2 years in a row that he had a poor first half and starts to improve in the second half. I'm hopeful that's just age and learning versus I think he needs to start strong next year, right from the beginning, play the type of hockey he's been playing this last little step. So that line is playing well. Slafkovsky's working hard. Suzuki's just been lights out, playing the best hockey of his year and maybe of his career. And Caufield is just filling the net and doing what he has to do best. Obviously, Patrick Laine came in with a bang and scored a ton of goals on the power play. Still has that excellent shot. He hasn't really got his legs under him. And again, we don't know if it's his knee injury, if it's his age, if it's his style, if he's never going to get that kind of speed again. But Patrick Laine has not impressed me on 5-on-5. And it's mostly because he kind of loses his man defensively. He's inconsistent defensively. Offensively, he tries to do some moves and he doesn't have the speed to do them. But again, he does provide a value to the team because he's basically been a deterrent, I guess you can call it, on the power play where teams have to cover him. And so it opens up the power play for players like Suzuki and Caulfield and Slafkovsky to get the pucks in the net. And so even when he's not scoring, it is adding value. But it's more of a power play specialist than a superstar player, which is quite interesting. So Owen Beck had a bit of a rough game against Edmonton. Didn't play a lot. That's going to happen when you're young. But again, I'm still a huge fan. I see the hockey IQ in that player. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how he progresses and how we basically see him moving forward at the NHL level. He's probably our biggest gap right now. That second line with Newhook, who is playing good hockey. He's using his speed. He's getting shots on net. He's playing a lot better than he did in the first half of the season. And so, I haven't given up on him. But again, he doesn't belong in the second line. And that's the problem with the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens have no second line. They have 3 third lines. They have a first line that's become pretty impressive. They're not necessarily elite, but they're pretty strong. So they're above average in the league when it comes to first lines. And then once you get past the first line, you have 3 third lines, which is interesting, right? So you have Evans and Armia and Heineman, who I've been really impressed with. I really like his game. Heineman, he reminds me of a Jake Evans or of a Gallagher with better shot and bigger. So he brings speed, he brings effort in the corners, and he brings a shot and some decent hockey IQ as well. And he plays a defensive style game as well. So that player is going to be a staple on this team for a long time to come. I look forward to him playing up and down the lineup. Right now he's playing down on the lineup, but I think he can fit in anywhere. And as we kind of see the team progress, he could be a person that can help or work with, I think, a Demidov. Demidov could get him to forecheck the puck, get it to him, vice versa. Demidov can set him up with passes and one-timers with a left shot to a left shot. So could Hudson. So it's going to be really, really exciting next season, I think. This year, I haven't given up on this year. The Canadiens are playing some good hockey. They haven't hurt their team. Other teams probably improve, but we'll see how much they improve. Sometimes, adding a player doesn't always work, as per the Rantanen move for Carolina. So we'll see how it all plays out, but I'm excited to see what happens next. Kind of running through the lineup, I thought Struble didn't play the greatest of games against Edmonton. I think 1 hit all game, and that's not enough for him. And I think that caused a little bit of exposure for Hudson on the defensive side of the puck, and he made a couple mistakes here and there on the power play. But Hudson did create that incredible play that got Armia his goal, and Hudson's just great. And first year, 20-year-old, 21 maybe, now he's going to have a long superstar career. On the defense, you have Matheson playing with Carrier. I think that's probably the best player for Matheson to play with. Carrier is just a solid, smart, hardworking defenseman, doesn't make very many mistakes, if any, wins many battles. Matheson, such a talent, great shot, great speed, just so many gambles, I guess you can call it, and risky plays, and doesn't quite see the ice the way I think he could. But again, he has speed, and when he plays his good games, which, he's been doing more recently, he doesn't hurt the team for sure. He plays a solid defense on the penalty kill. So kudos from that perspective. On the penalty kill, I think he's good. It's just sometimes on the 5-on-5, definitely on the power play, I feel like he just makes some of the wrong decisions. I know no one's going to remember this, but was it 3 minutes left? I can't remember if it was the second period, 2 minutes and 56 seconds left in the second period. Matheson had a slap shot from the point, and they were raving how it was over 90 miles an hour. It was a straight shot, open net, like open to the goalie, no screen. Right beside the net was a young man named Cole Caulfield sitting there. And if you have a Makar or a Hudson, that's not a shot, that's a slap pass right to his stick. It was going to be a definite deflection goal. Maybe go back to your replay of the game and go to about 3 minutes left in the second period. Just play that one clip and you can see why I get frustrated with Michael Matheson. And people say, well, Mike Matheson plays against the toughest lines and plays the most ice time and so forth. Listen, he's valuable. He's a great person, it appears. He speaks French. He's from Montreal. Teammates love him. But, you know, so does Carrier. Carrier plays tough minutes. Goulet plays tough minutes when he was playing. I don't crap on them. And there's a reason. They don't make the same kind of mistakes and decisions. And many of these mistakes and decisions lead to goals. And so that's my 2 cents on that one. I'm not, what do you call it? He's not a bad defenseman in a sense that he's not causing the team to lose games, but he just does so many things that he probably shouldn't do that just frustrate the crap out of me. And I'll leave it at that. But what do I know, right? I never played in the NHL. I played a bit of hockey though, but it doesn't mean anything. Savard, great defensive game, looks slower and slower every year. Him with Jack Eye is interesting. I think Jack Eye is inconsistent, but when he's good, he's great. His weakness, I guess, is speed. He's not the greatest of skaters. Has a great shot, tough guy. You know, you need a player like that, a nuclear deterrent, just to make sure your team doesn't get beat up and taken advantage of. So that's important. And so the lineups in general, you know, I like the way it's set up for now. Good news, I saw Goulet on the ice for the first time since his injury. Kent Hughes was not too optimistic that he was going to come back and play. End of the day, we'll see how it all plays out and how the Montreal Canadiens end up from that perspective. That's all I got for now. I'm going to, I might have a show before Saturday's game, but if not, I'll do a prediction. I think the Montreal Canadiens are going to beat the Calgary Flames, and I think it's going to be 5-2. I think the Montreal Canadiens are going to take it to them. They haven't had a game where they've kind of just, well, I mean, they just beat Carolina 4-0 not that long ago. I think this one's going to end up being 5-2. So that's going to be my call. Hopefully Cole Caulfield will get his 32nd goal. Hopefully Laine will score again. Maybe Beck will get his first NHL goal too. So hopefully one or two of those, if all three happen, then I've called a great shot there. The Montreal Canadiens did not end up basically making any moves, which it's what I've been asking for, what I've been calling for since we talked. So that's it for next shift. Look forward to the game on Saturday night and the Montreal Canadiens moving forward. Talk to you guys soon.